All right, welcome back. This is MDawg, and I think it's time for us to start a new leveling guide. So, if you've seen my previous leveling guides, we're starting from scratch, brand new account, level one, and the theme of this leveling guide is very much going to be back to basics. So, if you are new to RF4, I hope that this will be a very helpful series for you, especially if you're, let's say, level 1 to 20. These first few episodes maybe have some helpful pieces of advice. And if nothing else, just keep you company as you have found your way to RF4, which is quite a grind. Now, it's a fun grind, but let's face it, to get into this game, it does require a lot of time. And so perhaps perhaps you're playing this video even though you already have a pretty good feel of how things are going. You just want to watch someone else doing some of this early fishing. So that's what we're going to try to do. And also, I did just want to mention today is November 11th. When I record these videos, I will try to have them releasing within a day or two, at worst, on proximity to when I've actually recorded them. But part of why I'm starting this leveling series right now is my understanding is that we've pretty much sort of locked into this idea that there's not going to be any sort of new content between now and the end of the year. So if that's the case, this seems like a good time to try to like really reconnect with some of the older content and spend a little time trying to help out some of the newer players that have found their way to this community. So that's what I thought we would do. We can kind of work on this leveling guide perhaps all the way to the end of the year. And by then we'll have the New Year's challenges, and that'll give me something to focus on with content at that time. So that's sort of what I'm thinking here as we get started. I am going to sort of walk us through this tutorial now. And as I'm doing so, I'll continue to ramble a little bit. If you are having problems with controls in this game, I will just say if you hold down F1, all of the controls will come up. Some of the more advanced controls I will try to mention as we're going. But the basics, honestly, all you need to do is hit F1 and you can sort of see what the basic controls are. I guess it is worth noting that with some of the basic controls at least, it's worth noting that you can, oh, it's forcing us to release it. Isn't that interesting? You can change some of those. So let me see if it even lets us in this screen. Yeah, if you go to settings and then control, some of the controls are programmable. So if you don't like where some of them are, if it just bothers you that flashlight is F, then obviously that's one place you can change that. So and I don't know, maybe we'll get into some of the settings and stuff down the line, but for now let's try to have a little stronger cast than that. But let's just continue with the tutorial here. So this place that we are fishing at, I'm just realizing how see-through my hat is. So I'm wearing a green hat with a green screen. So, but what they're teaching us right now with float fishing on this map, does it even say what the map's called? Yeah, Forest Lake. Unfortunately, Forest Lake, once the tutorial's over, we're not able to come back here. But they're teaching us the difference in, I think that's a bite, right? Oh, see, I went early. I guess it's going to tell us when to strike. But this is like early on, especially if you do a lot of float fishing. This is one of the more challenging aspects of the game for new players and float fishing is when is it a bite versus when is it a nibble. So it's still nibble. I think the message is going to tell us when it switches to a bite, but like that double pull down like that gets me every time. Obviously that's a bite because of how far down it went. A lot of times it's much harder to discern though. One day we'll be able to keep these fish and actually start making some silver, but we're going to hold down B here, change to maggots, and cast back into the same place. I think this is the last thing before we quickly get introduced to spin fishing. And it doesn't take long. We're out of the tutorial and able to start really feel like we're fishing for real. I don't know. Did y'all see how low that was? Again, I'm showing my own tendency when I haven't done float fishing in quite a while, in particular for things like crucian gibels. Some of these starter fish, to me, they're some of the hardest fish to float fish for because they nibble for so long. Look how violent those pulls are. I guess one thing I'm not paying attention to is this is a 4-gram bobber. All right, there it goes. See how it was not only going down farther, but it was also going to the side. That is a dead giveaway. Okay, so hold down U, select the spinning rods. If you hold down U, this is where you can drag stuff into your different numbers. I'm going to put it in number 1. And then if I hit number 1, it pulls up the spinning rod. The other thing we could do is we could actually go to the rod we want to pick up and then hit pick up down here as well. But now that we've got this spinning rod, it wants us to cast into the green area. So what speed? It's got us retrieval speed 16. And we're doing straight retrieval because we're using a spinner bait here. Oops. And looks like we caught a little perch, if I'm not mistaken. 358 gram perch. Oh, so weird. Okay. What friction break are we on? 20? So I'm used to having released the fish on spacebar, I think. So that's one change that I'll probably make. Oh, that's a nice pike. 3.5 kilo pike. All right, so we've completed the tutorial. And now it's just going to dump us onto Mosquito Lake. And we'll be ready to start here. Okay. Welcome to RF4. Take your time to explore the diverse water bodies and catch unforgettable fish. Discover new equipment and specialize your character while participating in exciting tournaments. Or just enjoy fishing with friends and sharing your experiences with the community. Meet you at the water's edge and tight lines. Okay, yeah, it drops us right here in Mosquito. Reminding us we can hit F1 to look at some controls there. I did want to check out, so to release the fish, to release the fish is backspace, to keep it is spacebar. And spacebar wasn't working because in the tutorial we're not able to actually keep fish. That makes sense now. I was having a little bit more, a little bit of a concern there. Just wasn't understanding what I was missing, but that's the piece I was missing. So here's the first thing I want to mention is the cafe. As we catch fish here on Mosquito or other maps, except for a couple of exceptions, Bear Lake especially, there's going to be cafes where you can get at least double your money for selling the fish to the cafe if you can catch the right size. For example, you know, if we could go get some crucians and gibels, 3 gibels under 30, 3 crucians under 50. We've got a little bit of time left. Then we can get a higher percentage of silver than we would if we just sold them straight to the fish market. So keep your eye on what's available in terms of cafe orders. Sometimes that can dictate what you want to fish for. Now, I will make no bones about this. Let's disassemble this. I am a bottom fishing first fisherman in this game. And, you know, every once in a while I think about making leveling accounts that focus just on float, just on spinning. We've done a little bit of that in the past, but when I'm having the most fun and when I feel like I'm being most helpful to how the average player plays this game is, especially here in the beginning, is looking at bottom or feeder fishing. So we're going to do that again in this one, although I will, as we're going, try to continue to think about good spots for float fishing and spin fishing as well. I just want to make it obvious from the beginning that we'll be doing a good bit of bottom fishing. Even when we are float fishing or doing something else, we'll likely have 1 or 2 bottom rods in. So the first thing I want to do is purchase a Sorrento FD 100. If you look at the kits, we probably eventually do want to purchase 3 of the feeder fishing starters. These are $149 each. But I don't want to start saving up for something that costs 149 silver until I get a couple of bottom setups going. Now, you may say that it's more efficient to do something else, and you're probably right, but you're saying that probably as someone who's already played this game a good bit. For someone who's new to the game, just starting off and going straight to winding rivulet and trying to float fish for bleak and dace, while that's an option, not all the hook sizes might be available, and plus I just don't want to lock people into that specific strategy. Although at some point we may look at that a little bit ourselves. But so what I'm going to go ahead and do here is not going to feel bad at all about picking up the cheapest Sorrento FD 100. It only costs 37 silver, so we'll have a little bit of silver left off. We can go up to 4.6 load capacity, so we'll get that. Let's go ahead and look at that in our inventory, and I guess I should mention what I'm doing here. So if I hit I, that pulls up my inventory. The rod that I just picked up here is listed the Sorrento FD 100. Now I can click on rods over here, and then I see the different rod by category. I can use this Spark, at least for now, 3.2. Then we could put this 3.1 line on there. Remember, the load capacity is up to 4.6 kilos. So both of these are underneath the load capacity of the rod. So we're safe. You basically want your line and eventually your leader to be the thing that breaks first. That way you protect your reel and your rod, which in the big picture are going to be the very expensive parts of your equipment. And you don't want to break those. You want to break the very cheap stuff like the line and leaders. So we can set this up. Now we need to put some sort of sinker on here. I'm going to go ahead and get a feeder cage instead of a classic sinker to start off with. And then we'll need to put a hook on here as well. So let's see how much we have left. We want a bite alarm, but we don't have to have it if we run out. Let's get a feeder. We'll do a classic feeder. The cheapest one that's available is this, 30 grams. And then let's look at the bite alarm. The cheapest bell is 2.9. We still have 6, which gives us the opportunity. So a size 20 hook is not terrible. We're not high enough level. These are sold. Oh, there are 22s. So we're going to go ahead and get, as soon as we can afford a couple of these 22 hooks, we'll probably buy these. Because sometimes these go out of stock. And for the before mentioned bleak and dace strategy, and for things like ruffe, some of the small fish that you can do bleak, some of the small fish you can do nice cafe orders for, it's nice to have these small hook sizes. But for now, let's just get a size 20. And is there any bait we want to get? Maybe some cheap maggots. So now we're down to 1 silver. So we're very low. But we've got everything we need. Let's go ahead and set this up. So remember, we hold down U. So our feeder will be in the number 1 spot, and for now the float in the number 2 spot. And we've pulled out our feeder. we want to go ahead and put the sinker on there. Eventually we will craft some ground bait to put in this feeder cage to attract fish. We're going to go ahead and put this size 20 hook on there. Maybe we'll just start with a worm. We could also start with bread. Is it daytime? Yeah, it's daytime. Okay, so we are down here at the very spawn point of Mosquito Lake. I'm going to start us off in this spot right here. So we'll go with about a 9 clip. So clip is going to be a concept that's important for bottom fishing, and it's basically setting the maximum distance that you can throw your line out. So if I know I want to hit 9 meters and I set that as the maximum, that even if I cast with more power than that, it will stop it at 9 meters, and it might jerk it back a little bit, but we'll basically be casting to pretty close to 9 meters. So if I hold control and then hit plus or minus, that will change the line clip, which you should see in the very bottom of the screen right now. So we're going to go to a 9 clip here with the bread. You know, we may not have even thrown that far enough, but that's okay. And so we're going to put that out there, and then on this, on the float, you can do plus or minus without control, just plus or minus straight, and that will change the float depth. You know, that's something they used to teach you in the actual tutorial, and I'm just reflecting on, we were just doing the tutorial, and I don't remember it having us change the depth of the bait with float fishing, which is kind of interesting. It is almost 11 a.m. So I'm going to cast this sort of straight out in front of us. And again, hitting 0 on my number pad, at least how I have it set up. We'll set that rod down as well. Oh, I can see, I think we have a fish on. And it reminds me, we did not put a bite alarm on here, right? We do need to get a bite alarm. So I'm holding down, I mean, I hit Z one time to zoom in. But you can see we've got a crucian carp, small crucian carp on. This is a good start. It's our first fish. It is 276 grams. Now there's no green check mark up here. So it's not quite big enough to qualify as a marker sized fish. And because of that, it's going to be worth a lot less when we try to sell it. Except for the fact that we know we have those cafe orders. And so we can at least do a little bit better in the cafe with undersized fish because of that. Wow, that's a big fish. So 654 gram crucian puts us at 0.2 float fishing. Now, what size hook are we using over here? A little bit bigger hook, 16 versus 20 on the feeder. And this is with worms. So let's cast this right back out there. And hopefully we will continue in our early start here towards making some nice silver. Remember, we want to buy those hooks when we can, but we also want to get a second feeder rod as quickly as possible. So we need about 50 silver so that we can be fishing with 2 bottom rods and 1 float rod to at least start out with. In Russian Fishing 4, you can have 3 rigs out at the same time. So that's what we're going to try to do here. As it gets closer to nighttime, there is a rough spot that I want to try. So hopefully we'll be able to catch a few rough even on our very basic starter sets here. If there's any way by the time nighttime hits that we can have a second bottom rod, that would help tremendously. Well, I messed that bite up, didn't I? But we'll see if that actually is even possible at this rate. But yeah, there's a rough spot that I would like to try. This is where you are slow going in the beginning. You know, we haven't had a whole lot of time to experiment to see what spots are the best. This is a pretty reliable place to fish. Is that a roach or is that a crucian? Looks like a crucian. 219 gram. The one thing that's good again is that that cafe order. All we're getting is crucian so far. So you may be more familiar if you've fished in this on Mosquito a lot. But a lot of people will do it. Will fish this spot from here, and I'm sure I will some too. But if you don't want to have to deal with pulling the fish up and over the boat, it can be nice to set up down here on the edge as well. It's really fishing from the same into the same spot though. You can only, the clip that I used, you can only do that on spinning reels. So the feeder setup counts. The float setup obviously does not have a spinning reel, so we are not able to set a clip on there. We're just having to manually clip to about the same distance each time. Even with the slightly larger hook on the float rod, seems like we are getting a better bite rate on the worms compared to the bread. So I may switch us over to worms on the bottom rod as well for now. I'm going to try to draw your attention to something. So here's a check mark, even though it's not that much bigger than the last one. This was what, 324, and the first one we caught that was not a marker was 276. Somebody has pointed this out in previous leveling guides, so I'll go ahead and mention it now. For some people, they have found it helpful the way that I do float fishing in this kind of setup, and especially with these like starter fish, the crucian gibbles and such that nibble for so long. And maybe next time I catch a fish, you might be able to see it, although it's going to be a little harder since there's so little slack in the line. As soon as I pick this telestick up, it's going to actually pull the bobber underwater. But what I do that some people have found helpful is that I sort of gently set the hook. In other words, I don't fully click down and hold down the left mouse button. I initially just try to set the hook. And then once I confirm that the fish is on, then I go ahead and pull it pretty aggressively. So that's sort of the way I do it. I don't know that it actually makes that much of a difference, but for me, it feels like I'm more in control of setting the hook. And so kind of like that, I don't know if you noticed, but I sort of gently pulled it first, and then I changed to a little bit more aggressive pulling the fish out at the end. All right, so as soon as this fish is actually on here, okay. Well, I was going to switch to worm, and then of course we catch a monster. Fish got away. I was a little nervous about that. So we didn't break anything. The fish was just so big. Remember, we have like almost no skill. We're at 0.2 on our bottom fishing. We don't have any skill points to put in anything. So we'll talk more about skill points once we do. But there's just more of a chance with low skill and cheap equipment. I mean, look at this, 3 silver hook we're using. All kinds of reasons why that could have happened. But either way, it did happen. And so now we just don't get to know what fish that was. But thankfully nothing broke. It just popped off the hook. All right, I got to pick this up. Be ready for this fish. We might have actually missed a bite there. I think it was moving to the side aggressive enough that that might have been a bite. Look at the line still dancing around. That's kind of weird. So we have now switched to worm on both setups because the bite rate just seems to be better on worm. We are at 5 crucian carp, so I might go check the cafe. Maybe after we catch one more fish. Line is still going crazy. A little bit of a glitch or something there. So if you don't know, Russian Fishing 4 actually is a free-to-play game, and I intend to do this leveling series for as long as we stick with it. I intend to do it completely free to play. We had some fun last time we did a leveling series. We actually did a little bit of premium, well, not premium, but we did a little bit of gold so that we could do trips to some of the newer maps, both the Norwegian Sea and Copper Lake. You can do a certain amount of trips to those places. And while that was a lot of fun, on my main account, those are typically the places where I spend the most time. I was actually looking forward to the chance to actually just try to reconnect with some of these older maps and older fishing styles, and try to just enjoy the journey, the early part of the journey a little bit. There's our first roach, I think. I would love to make some ground bait, but you know, to me, there's no time as suffocating on needing silver as this early part. So we are 1 crucian away from being able to fulfill this order without using our marker fish. So this is like the ideal. We still have plenty of time. We only need 3 gibbles, but so far no gibbles have been coming out. That roach also. So we might get some low-level, easy cafe orders here, which could be help us a little bit in our start. And just if you're curious on how slow this process is, if you take our 3 fish that are markers, it's only 2.95 silver. Our non-markers are 0.25 silver. So pretty much nothing. Let's see if we've got a fish on the float out here. You can tell it's been moving all around because of where it's located. All right, so here we go. Another non-marker crucian. This is perfect. We should just go turn that cafe order in. It doesn't get any better than that. We are able to fulfill the cafe order. By the way, if you see in the bottom left-hand part of the screen, so if we're going to sort this by weight, we're going to click on the first one, hold down shift, and click on the 5th one. We need 5 of these. They're non-markers. We're going to get 9 silver instead of getting pretty much a quarter of 1 silver. We get 9 silver. That is amazing. We can go get some ground bait. But let's see what's happening over here. It looks like it's getting a little bit later in the afternoon and our bite rate is just going up over here. There's level 2. We're at 1.2% on float fishing, and I forgot about the free gift system. So this means when we are hitting, somebody please remind me in chat, when does the big gift happen? Is it was it when you hit level 10? Or is it a different level? But we want to make sure that we are spin fishing when we hit that level, because the gift you get if you level up while spin fishing is more desirable than the gift you get if you level up while float fishing, at least in my opinion. So anyway, level 2, and we got some caddisfly. That is very cool. Go ahead and cast this back out here, a little farther than that. And is that a perch? Yeah, so the perch are starting to come in on the worm because of the time of day. Perch are active, and even though you catch perch on spin, You can also catch them if you're using worm. Like one of the ways that people try to catch trophy perch here at Mosquito is actually on night crawlers, one of the types of worms in this game. Okay, so we're doing ground bait. This is our introduction into ground bait. I think I want to make, sort of thinking through this, I think I want to make you know what, let's just try to go ahead and do both. So millet porridge is for crucian gibble. Bloodworm, is it bloodworm or maggots? I think it's bloodworm is for roach. Sunflower oil is for crucian gibble. Caramel is for roach. So let's see if I'm right on those. I will show you how to make ground bait here for our cage, which is going to be any second now. What we want to do. But this float could take forever, especially if it's a crucian gibble or a roach. It's going down though. Looks like it's about ready. Okay, if you hit in and go to ground bait, we want to go down to crucian gibble. So that's crackers, millet porridge, and sunflower oil. I purchased that from the store just a second ago. And then we also want to go down to roach. Even though we have not leveled up our skills yet, both of these are things that you can make on before you have any skill points. So now what we want to do, since this is a spot more focused on crucian gibble, we'll put that mix on there. We're going to go up to a size 14 hook, and we're going to put bread on there. Now my thinking is this: as we move a little later in the day, we might have a chance of seeing a little bit larger crucian gibbles. So let's see if we can do that. And there's just no way we're going to be able to get a second feeder rod, at least at this pace, by the time it's nighttime. So we may just end up fishing here. I don't want to confuse the issue by going to winding rivulet on this first episode. So I know some of you might be squirming a little bit, saying like, hey, why don't you go do this or that at winding? And yeah, those are, those are great options as well. If you are new to the game, there is 2 maps you can go to at level 1. They're both free travel, and you don't have another map until level 12. These 2 open up. But for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to fish here at Mosquito to begin with. And what you're expecting there. Okay. There's our first tench. And then another episode early on, we'll start exploring winding. And if the spots seem better at winding, then who knows, maybe we'll spend a little more time there. But I have to admit, I'm pretty partial to Mosquito. Overall, I like both, but I am pretty partial to Mosquito. Now, I've mentioned that I want to get second feeder, basic feeder rod set up as quickly as possible. And then after that, we'll be wanting to go for our third one. Although the question is, do we get a third basic one or do we save for our first basic kit? And it probably is the case that I would start saving for our first basic kit, but we'll see. It's 149 instead of about 50 silver. There's another roach. What is this, our second fish since we put the ground bait and the bread in there? All right, yeah, this is getting a little bigger. Look at that crucian. Yeah, that's a big boy for us. That's 1.188 kilos. That's going to hit level 3, which gives us some pearl barley. I was just thinking about pearl barley, actually. Because there's a roach spot that is active at Mosquito that I kind of want to try. But the hard part is we just don't really have any of the really solid roach baits unlocked at the moment. Although between the caddisfly, maggots, and now the pearl barley, all of those will work. So maybe we don't have an excuse at this point if we want to try that spot. Roach are really good in the evenings and in the mornings, and the nice thing about roach is they will actually stay pretty active all day long. On the other hand, they're not the best during the overnight hours. That's where having a decent crucian gibble spot or something like a ruffe spot is typically going to be better for you. Oh, yeah, I should have let that alone. I don't see the float, so I'm assuming we've got a fish on. Yeah, we do. Oh, it's a marker perch. Because we're using worms, we're catching a little bit of everything here. Okay, we still haven't seen gibbles yet. That's correct. Is there anything we're even getting close to? You know, we may not need that many roach to stretch for this order. We need 4 more. We're probably not hitting that perch order. Now that's possible. That's probably what we should stretch for, because that's 24 silver. And I don't know how good the bite rate will be at night, but that is a possibility. And at this point, this is when we need to start already just embracing the chill, cozy feeling of RF4. It is never a quick process progressing in this game. But those of us that really like it, that's a part of the charm, I think. We will be kind here and say grats on level 3 to Andre B. All right. Another crucian. Very small crucian, but we'll take it. It's leveling up our bottom fishing. So everything you do in this game levels something up, pretty much. And of all of the, yes, there's skill points, and we can talk about those in a second, but of all of the things that matters the most in sort of progressing your fishing, it's just simply doing the thing you want to progress. So the more you bottom fish, the higher this percentage goes. Not only will you unlock new types of fishing within that category that you can do, but you also just increase your chances of catching good fish. The game actually favors the game actually favors or rewards the higher your percentage, the better fishing you'll do. Okay, once again, I think next fish on the feeder rod, we're going to move. We're going to go try to fish from the pier, the spot that I showed you, the different like angle from here, and see how that goes. Not seen the line jump around like this, at least as like consistent as it's doing it. I mean, I've seen like every once in a while there's been kind of bugs like that or whatever, but the consistency, I wonder if we like traveled and then traveled back, if that might get it. I don't know. All right, so I guess I said we were going to move. Oh, it's a decent sized fish, I think. Is that another tench? Wow. Oh my goodness. See what I did there? I was accidentally holding down shift, so I jerked that thing so hard it probably just flew right out of the fish's mouth. So we're going to move over here and we're going to cast it more like at 8 meters and going straight at this spot so we can kind of get it a little bit more precise where we want to have it. See how this goes. Well, that's a good start. See if we can actually get this one in. That last one that was decent size popped right off the hook. But I think we've actually got this one in. That's going to hit us up to level 4. Get us some semolina, which we don't mind at all. And we just waited too long on the hook there. But these bigger crucian definitely worth some pretty good silver. Guess we can go check real quick. I'm trying to remember how much time is left on that crucian order. Before we get to the end of this first episode, if possible, be nice to get 2 more to at least hit this 24 silver. The other thing, if we just stopped right now, we've made 14 silver, which puts us back at 18. We would much rather get the 24, and I think we can get there relatively easily. So if you hit space, you yeah, that one's big enough. If you hit the space bar, you will put out a net. If you can't quite reach the fish, as the fish get a little bigger, that becomes more and more important. You see how we've got the net out now? But you start off with, it's under accessories, a 2 meter landing net, and from the store you can upgrade to a 3 meter, which it's one of the many things that here early on is competing for this early silver you make, but I would recommend doing that relatively early as well, especially when you start trying to push yourself towards larger fish. I think we might have enough crucian now. And one thing I did not notice, even though I said I was going to notice, or maybe I did notice, but I just didn't retain it, is the amount of time that was left in the order. Plenty of time. So yes, technically we could do it, although we're using a couple of really big crucians. If we happen to get a couple more that are around the 400 gram mark, that would be a much more efficient thing for us to do. And there was a fish on, but it is now gone. Yeah, we have definitely turned into a very poor example of float fishing as we are sporadically moving back and forth between the cafe and other locations. But is it fun or worth checking that rough spot? Not like it's that far off. At 46.78. We could go try it even just with one rod, just to catch a single rough or two before we wrap it up. But I'd love to get, let's see, let's go to crucian. At least like one or two more that fit the weight requirement. There's a regular bream, but it's too small. All right. See, we did that perfect. I think that, you know, I don't know. It's never 100% on float fishing. Plus, we're using very cheap hooks, but either way, I feel like we got to that one at about the right time. I will try to prioritize in our next episode, which I may actually film tonight. We'll see how it goes, but I will try to prioritize if there's some like reasonably decent float fishing spots at Winding, kind of showing you what that's like. Like I said, I'll likely in these first episodes spend a lot of time here at Mosquito because it allows us for what I think of as the more like traditional bottom fishing experience. But there's no question that there are some very efficient and nice float fishing and even bottom fishing options at Winding. The big thing that's appealing for Winding, look, someone just caught a huge dace on telly in chat, which is cool. The huge thing for Winding, though, is if you're really into spin fishing, which is one thing that would be cool, is to at least attempt to catch a few fish on spin while we're doing either float fishing or bottom fishing at Winding. It can be a little tricky, but that would be a fun thing to attempt. And I hope someone in chat will let me know about. It's actually going to come up quick because level 10 just comes so fast, especially just not knowing what, you know, when you're going to hit your first trophy or just something weird. But hopefully we won't mess that up on that free gift. It's okay if we do because it's not that expensive. But all right, 448. That's a nice size roach, by the way. All right, it's 1149. We didn't mess. No, we're good. Okay. Here we go. All right, we're going to use the net on this one so you can kind of see what that animation looks like. All right, there's another crucian that's at the right size. So we'll just give it another minute or two and then we'll go try to catch a rough just so you can see the spot. We don't have the ideal hook size for it, but 20 should work. Oh, there's a small crucian. It's funny that we can't seem to get a a gibble in this spot right now. All we're catching is crucians and no gibbles. But that's okay. And especially early on, I keep all the fish to sell. You eventually may choose to only keep the markers because these are worth so little, the non-markers, but I mean, every little penny counts right now, so I would say keep it all. Yeah, this is perfect. All right. I think we have what we want. So let's go turn this cafe order in, and then we'll see if we can catch a rough or two before coming to a close on this very first episode. So the crucian carp order, we want to do it by weight. So the thing is here, we're doing 6, and we want to use our 6 smallest. We're getting 24 silver. I love it. So we're up to 29 silver. We're only, what, 20 silver plus maybe a little bit more away from being able to afford our second feeder. And that's already 13.9 in what we have left. So that's very cool. What did I say? 46.78. Okay, so it's going to be just here, and we're going to go to a 10-meter clip. We do want to put the small hook on there, and we're going to use worms. The ideal bait for this is actually going to be either worms or red worms. Red worms would probably even work better. We could also go 11 clip, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And we're just going to cast it straight out there. And then we'll put this in just in case. I don't know if we'll get a whole lot of action on the float, but... And let's just see if we can drum up a rough here. Before we go. Now, one thing I'm noticing is, or remembering, is we don't have a leader yet. And it's not necessary, but especially with some of these cautious fish, it can be helpful. All right, there's our first rough. It's a small one, but we did find one. That's cool. And as I suspected, we have not had a nibble yet on the on the float, but we also don't have a small enough hook to really be competitive with rough. So it just depends on if anything else is actually active in this spot. So far it seems that it's not. Yeah, I don't. Just not sure that crucian gibbles are active right here. Looks like we might have a rough on again. I don't know, maybe not. The rough are so small they're not setting off the bite alarm. Or they didn't in that first one. I was hoping we might be able to see our first marker-sized rough to see what it's worth, but I don't want to wait too long either. I also would argue, at least for bottom fishing, it's kind of nice to have red worms unlocked before you start doing too much bottom fishing at winding. Not absolutely necessary, but it is nice. Okay, I don't know why that one slipped off. All right, let's see if we've got one. Nah, we don't. So, oh, it's like ghost snagged. I don't think there's anything we can do here. Wait, hold on. I don't really want to lock it up. I can't tell. Okay, we got it out. It's kind of awkward. I think it's because this. Here's what I think. Now, it could have been something to do with the bottom of the lake as well. But I think the main reason why that happens sometimes is we have such a weak little spinning reel on here. And because the 15 grams were all sold out, this is actually a 30-gram feeder we have on there. So we're kind of dragging that through the mud or something with this pretty weak spinning reel. I think that's probably what was happening there, but either way, it felt kind of awkward. So unfortunately, though, we did see a ruffe, and we will try to like target these again when we have a little bit more appropriate setups. We couldn't get a marker ruffe. We don't have anything else in terms of cafe orders. So let's just go ahead and sell these. This is going to put us up at, we sort by price. You see these are worth over 3 silver a piece, those big size crucians, which is why it might have been good for us just to stick on crucian gibbles at night. But I knew we probably wouldn't go the whole night anyway. But I was mentioning there at the end before we stopped fishing that there is feeder leaders. At some point we probably are going to want to do this. So level 8 for the fluorocarbon. Not a whole lot of reason to put nylon on there unless we needed to sort of aggressively go after a certain load capacity, but you know, we've already got nylon line on there, so I don't know that the leaders would make that much of a difference. But when we can get to fluorocarbon, that's probably worth looking at as an option. So real quick, we got to level 4 in this first episode. I just wanted to mention, you know, we haven't put any skill points in, and I'm sort of doing that on purpose. I don't mind talking through the skill points. One of the things I want to emphasize is that there is really no need to rush on these skill points. The most impactful thing that you're going to do in terms of leveling your character up is, like I said before, the actual just act of doing the type of fishing you want to do. So we'll try to get some spin fishing done, either, you know, at winding or certainly at Belaya one day, but not great spin fishing here at Mosquito. If you want to do something kind of a little bit fun, you can troll at Mosquito, but I don't know if we'll do that. We'll see how it goes. But where to put the skill points is one of the, you know, obviously more common questions you get from new players. I just want to point out that you do get one free global reset. But once you've used that reset, it actually is pretty expensive to refund your points if you ever want to change them. You have to pay real money for that. So what I would advise you to do is be slow to put your points in and be very slow to use your reset. This is going to sound a little crazy in terms of how long it takes to get to level 30 in this game, but I think waiting till level 30 or even higher is a reasonable goal to set for yourself before using that reset. I guarantee you, like, from when you start playing this game, even if you do research, your opinion about where you want to put your points was probably going to change pretty dramatically from level 10, let's say, till level 30. But if you use that reset at level 22, then it's gone, obviously, and however you feel about the game at level 30, you would have to pay real money to make that change. So for now, I'm not going to put any points in this first episode. I'm going to sort of just wait. But I will tell you this. The places that I would put points The first thing I like to do is put points in the ground bait. So I would put 3 points in ground bait. Right now we have 3 points. I would be comfortable doing that. In fact, we may do that at the beginning of the next episode. After that, you get 1 point per level, but once you hit level 20, you start getting 2 points. And then once you hit level 30, you start getting 3 points per level and so forth. After the ground bait, if you are doing a lot of bottom fishing and fishing for different like carp type fish, like small carp, like bream and stuff like that, I would probably put a point, maybe just 1 point or 2 into harvesting baits, because eventually we'll get a shovel and we'll start digging for our own bait. And this just increases your chance of success, increases your chance of some of the rare baits as you level up harvesting baits. So just in terms of the amount of time that saves you, because it levels up something, namely harvesting baits, as you successfully shovel. And it gives you access to red worms more consistently at an earlier place, like an earlier time period. I just think it's worth it. So I do often, pre my first reset at least, I would often put points in digging. Now that's one that it's possible you could regret later on. So if you've already used your reset, think long and hard about this one. I still think for me, it's not too deep into the game that I would be comfortable having even this maxed out, because once you start getting to high level, if you're going to do any sturgeon fishing, some of these hitting some of these baits more often on the shovel can be really nice. Okay, so first points for me, making ground bait, harvesting points, maybe 1 point for now. And then I start going fishing with a feeder rod and using a spinning reel. So these are the next 2 places that I'd put points until they're both maxed out. So that is 7 here and 5 here. So that gets us to what? 12, 15. I mean, that gets us to level 16. I think at level 16, maybe 17 even, we have done what I've described. Maxed out this, 3 points in ground bait, 1 point in shovel, in harvesting. So that's what I like to do for skill points, but that's because I lean towards bottom fishing. Now the good thing about spinning reel is it's universal. So that's going to benefit you on spin fishing. It's going to benefit you on float fishing once you get to bolo. And certainly once you get to match rod. And it's going to benefit you on bottom fishing, because you're using spinning reels on bottom fishing as well. The only type of reels that it doesn't benefit you on is once you get to bait casting and conventional, but that is a long way down the line and not something to worry about at this point in the game. So that's my game plan typically, and recommendation to the average RF4 player. But I would encourage you, don't even put those points in the beginning, because you need to spend some time fishing to find out which type of fishing is going to be the types that you enjoy the most, where you want to become more of an expert in. And that's some of the fun of this game, is the RPG elements. You're deciding what your particular character is going to specialize in, especially from an early level. It will be a long time until you have enough points to feel like you don't desperately want more points. Maybe around sometime in your early 40s. If you're not into all the types of fishing, then by then you might feel like you have enough points to adequately cover all of the things that you want to cover. And how long until you hit your early 40s, you might ask? Well, I can't tell you exactly. Because the truth is, in this day and age, you level so much faster than you used to. And that's especially because of trips to Norway and trips to copper. And just as this game has evolved, you are making a lot more silver per hour. You're actually gaining XP way faster than you used to. So there's no really actual good way for me to answer that theoretical or rhetorical question. But regardless of changes they've made to the game and how it's gotten a little bit more, thankfully, new player friendly, I would argue that's a good thing. It still is a lot of hours, a lot of time. It's a grindy, slow game, even with the new changes. Okay, so quick reminder. I'll try to get this thing uploaded, and then my goal in the beginning here is at least to get 2 or 3 episodes out a week. We'll see how I'm able to stay with that schedule or not with my kind of busy work schedule, but that'll be my early goal. And another reminder is that my hope is when I'm not able to stream, so a lot of times on the weekend I can get a stream or two in, sometimes during the week, but it's rare. My hope is that this will give me something to be able to do, some fun for me to be able to have, and hopefully it's enjoyable for you as well. And my intent is to be able to kind of work on this leveling series until we hit the Christmas fair or the New Year's fair. And if we have the challenges like we did last year, at that point I'll probably transition to making some content all about those challenges on my main account. And that might be a natural time to finish this series. But don't worry, if you're new to the game, I try to do these leveling series at least twice a year. And if there are even small changes in 2025, first quarter of 2025, I wouldn't be surprised if I started another one of these. But for now, we'll keep going on this one and just see where it takes us as we push towards Thanksgiving and then after that towards Christmas. So anyway, as always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Tight lines, and I'll see you on episode 2.